Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Magnetically Aligned Woman event. Walk into your power through self love, self worth, and authenticity. Today, I'm so excited. I have Janifer Wheeler, and she is the JoyFull Badass Whisperer who brings a shift ton of fierce fun everywhere she goes. And as the founder of the JoyFull Badass Academy, she empowers business owners to maximize people and profits by prioritizing joy, empathy, equality, and inclusion. She's had over 25 years of corporate and public education. She revolutionized personal development by facilitating innovative remote learning experiences that shifts minds, opens hearts, connects teams, and strengthens resiliency. Not only that, but she's an international award-winning speaker, Soul Spa game developer, and certified diversity professional. Now, Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. And I just want you to share a little bit more about yourself with us.
Well, thank you so much, Nikki, for having me. This is just such a cool event. I love sharing my journey in the hopes that it might resonate with other women and give them some empowerment or confidence or a new idea or a spark, for whatever it is that they want to do, or for more clarity around who they are and why they're, on this planet, which I think we often all think about. But as you said, I am Janifer Wheeler. I am the JoyFull Badass Whisperer, meaning that I help other women discover and find their inner joyful badass. So, in my world, I started out, I think, people often ask me, how did you become the joyful badass? Like, where did that even come from? And I think it all started from childhood in some ways, because I'm a Scorpio. Okay, I was born. I'm a full-on Scorpio, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with Scorpio qualities, a couple of them are no filter, totally truth teller. Like, just say it like it is. There's very little gray area with a Scorpio, so things are black or white, and your opinions are very clear. So my personal boundaries have been in place basically since I could speak. Like, no, stop, leave me alone. Like, just a lot of that. Plus, it's not necessarily known, but I am a petite person. So, you've got that smaller persona, right, that people just make assumptions about. And then I have an unusually spelled name that's based off a common name. So people are always like, oh, Jennifer. No, it's Janifer. So, I guess all those years of correcting people, speaking up, don't dismiss me because I'm small, that kind of stuff, it just kind of empowers you. And so I feel like I've always kind of had that little bit of a badass quality, not afraid of confrontation, not necessarily starting them, but, I can handle myself. But what I did realize after many years in the public education classroom when I was teaching is that there wasn't as much joy, right? So I had the bold confidence, like,
Yeah.
and it comes in, it's not like I'm always confident as a Scorpio, and I'm also an overthinker. So I'll sit around and just like think things to death and move myself from a really good positive place to a oh, maybe I need to redefine my whole entire life. Scorpios are, like I said, you're way on this side, way on this side. There's a lot of weirdness in between. But ultimately, I realized I had no joy. There wasn't much joy in teaching. I love the kids. I love that all the parts that go into actually teaching and being with my students. But there was so much bullshit, all around what I was doing, that I just lost all the joy, and I didn't know how to get it back. Right. When I decided to leave the classroom, I was thinking, okay, I knew I had to leave because it wasn't about the grade level. It wasn't about the content.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the school. I love my school, my coworkers. So I knew that those factors didn't have anything to do with it. It was all about me and what was inside me. And I just kept feeling like there was more, like I was made to do more, to do something else. And, not necessarily become more like a famous person or like a huge influencer or that kind of thing, but just like there's more. I'm made to be more. This is just not enough. but I didn't know what that meant. And so I just decided to leave. Like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm a big advocate for figuring out no's. Like, no's lead you to a yes. So if you're walking down the path and you're like, okay, well, I know I don't like that. I know I don't want to do that. I know I don't want to do that. And you eliminate them and move them off your plate, it frees up space for the yes, right?
Oh,
And
yes.
so I just jumped out and I'm like, okay, I'm quitting. I'm not returning. I'm not coming back to school next year. And people would say, well, what are you going to do? And I didn't know. Like, I really had no idea. But thankfully, I have a super supportive partner. And he's like, look, I can't see I can't watch you be this miserable.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes, you have to do what you got to do. So I couldn't have done it without him. Like, I just couldn't have it. It wouldn't have worked. But it took me a while to figure out what really brought me joy and where I could find my personal zone of genius. And that's what I do through the JoyFull Badass Academy. I help other women find that joyful zone of genius, because we're all good at a variety of things. But that doesn't mean that the things we're good at or the things we're very capable of doing are also joyful, right? I gotta admit, I'm an excellent fourth grade teacher. My kids adored me. The parents loved me. I was an excellent fourth grade teacher. And I have all the letters from my students to prove it.
Oh.
Um, but there wasn't enough joy, right? That wasn't enough. Like, that was not enough to offset all the things that were not joyful. So even though we can't always be like completely joyful all the time, there's stuff that are in our lives that we, don't particularly love, that we just have to tolerate. But when you have the joy, it helps offset whatever the other maybe not so fun or not so thrilling or growth mindset kinds of things are, like, that you have to do, right? Because you got to take out the trash. If you don't take out the trash, your house is going to stink. It's going to be terrible, so you got to do it. But you can make it more joyful. Like, so I hate taking out the trash, but I'm going to do it. And when I get done, I'm going to go have, it's Easter time, a peep, right? Like, whatever it is to reward yourself for doing something that you didn't necessarily love, it can be super easy and small. And I'm going to, read a book for 15 minutes because I took care of all this. So I don't know, maybe I'm off on a tangent now, but that's how I got from point A to point B.
I love that. And this opens up a whole new space, because a lot of times, like, we kind of feel like, oh, well, we're currently on this path already. And we've been on this path for so long. So that fear of like, should I just stop whatever it is I'm doing to go off and explore what actually makes me happy, or what actually calls out to me? And I think, like, your journey of exploration, that what would that word be? Oh, just allowing, like, validating, allowing yourself to do that is so important.
It's
And
like giving
finding out
yourself permission.
permission, that was the word. Oh my God.
Right. It's like giving yourself permission, right? Because I think, especially as women, and I know men have these things put on them too, but as women, society really defines our role, right? We, from a small girl, we are told these are what you're supposed to do, right? All these little benchmarks and milestones. And maybe that's really not it, right? But we're not given space to kind of explore and get to know ourselves. And I think that's really the travesty, right? If you don't become your own personal best friend, like, if you can't love yourself at that level, if you can't trust yourself, I mean, think about the qualities of your very, very best friend, right? Well, you two wouldn't be best friends if you didn't have qualities that she needed or he needed, right? Like, whomever your best friend is, or, so think about that in terms of your own self. Take care of yourself the same way you would take care of your closest friend. Because when everybody is gone and, you're alone, you are still with yourself, right? You can't escape yourself. As long as you are living and breathing, you cannot escape your own self. So why not learn to love that person and trust that person and, rely on that person's judgment so that you're making decisions that are completely aligned with who you are, right? Because for me, that was a huge disconnect. I didn't see myself as my own friend. I that concept was really weird. And so as I was on my own personal growth journey, I'm like, that's the key for me. I mean, to really know myself, take the personality test, investigate your horoscope. I mean, I'm a girl who wants to know as much about myself as I can, because I want to understand, why am I made this way, right? Why do I have these qualities?
Ooh.
What am I supposed to be doing with it? And I think if you don't know yourself and you don't spend time with yourself, like I journal a lot. I use oracle cards. I have had, I'm not very good at tarot personally, but I have had readings. I believe that we are, we have universal energy. We're all connected by energy, right? Even inanimate objects transmit energy. So we are all connected by energy. Why not, tap into it? So I'm a big advocate for utilizing your intuition. I made my own oracle game to help people kind of get more connected with their intuition. But for me, a lot of it's just journaling and listening to myself and writing down the things that my brain tells me so I can evaluate it. I talk to myself sometimes. I recently read an article that said that does not mean you're crazy.
No, it doesn't. It helps you process your thoughts. Like all these things that we're told is like not good for you or makes you crazy. Like I embrace that aspect because I am very much, I have a Scorpio moon. So I completely
Okay.
understand where you come from with the whole overthinking and I'm very emotional in that aspect too. And I think with, well, I'm studying human design. So like
I
with
love that whole
human
concept. That's
design,
fascinating to me.
is the 50% of the population is emotionally defined. And we've been taught for so long that emotions are weak, emotions are, like they interfere with the process and the routine. But the truth is, your emotions give you clarity. After you process your
Mhm.
emotions, they give you clarity, they give you direction, they show you, okay, what hurts, what brings me joy, what makes me happy, and what do I not like so much. But we kind of like repress that and we don't allow ourselves to explore that and just say, I'm a human being. I feel emotions, and emotions are results of the activities that we do,
Mhm.
right?
Right. And when I speak to people about empathy, that's exactly where that comes from, right? Because regardless of whether you have the same lived experience as another person, something similar has happened to you. I mean, can one human being in the world say, I've never been bullied? No one has ever said anything to me that made me feel bad. No one has ever done anything that just crushed my heart and soul. Like, we've all been there, right? So when you talk about the bad, yes, we've all had something that we can connect to and create empathy. And when you talk about the good, we can all find something to connect and find empathy, right? Like, we are human beings. So like you said, our emotions, our responses to situations and scenarios, that's what connects us. So when I talk about diversity and inclusion and what people can do to be an ally, it's empathy. It's all about empathy, right? I don't have to be in your shoes to
Mhm.
know what it feels like, right? Maybe not on the same level, maybe not at the same depth, but an inkling is enough to say, well, that sucked and that was shitty, and
Yeah.
I don't want to do that to other people, and I don't want to be perpetuating things that do that or create that environment for other people. Like, I don't want that. And so I really do think that joy is a place to find connection. Empathy is definitely a place to find connection, right? We need those things. And I feel like, for some reasons, we seem to have lost that ability to just like really connect with the person on that human level, right? Just that because you're right, we all have emotions, we all have emotional responses and reactions to situations. And perhaps again, not at the same level, but regardless, I know what it felt like when I was dismissed because I was female, right, in a job situation. So if I take that feeling and add, okay, if I was an African American woman, if I was an Asian woman, if I was an Indian woman, or whatever culture or whatever else goes around it, an LGBT woman, then amplify it, right? I felt like shit. Amplify that to a much higher level. That's how they feel. So, oh my God, please let me do something to help mitigate, right? Let me do something because I know how that felt. And and that's how I feel about empathy, right? We just got to tap into it just a little bit. I read something that said, you look when someone says, this happened to me or whatever, and you hear someone say, oh, I can't imagine how terrible that would be. Yes, you can. You're just not willing to. You're just not taking the time to go beyond and say, wow, I can imagine that, and that would be horrible. Or I've had a similar experience, and that, you know what I mean? Like, yes, you can. I mean, we're all brains, they work, I guess, most of the time. So we can imagine it. If we can imagine a man on the moon, we can imagine what it would feel like if insert any kind of social injustice thing that's happening or whatever. But anyway.
That automatically goes into like being aligned with your emotions too, because oftentimes like we're so disconnected from our body and our emotions and how to feel and process, that it's easier to stay disconnected. It's easier to kind of say, I really don't want to feel the pain and I don't want to face the pain, so I'm just going to distance myself by watching Netflix or hanging
Right.
out with my friends and kind of avoiding the situation instead of feeling like, okay, maybe I should do something about it. So
Mm-hmm.
my what I want to lead into is like, what does it mean to be aligned for you? Like, what does alignment mean?
For me, well, part of my program and in part of my trainings within the JoyFull Badass Academy, and the one program that really changed my life that I'm now a facilitator for, which is called the Joy Money Matrix. What those experiences helped me do was get really clear on my own personal values, right? What do I value? Right. And so there's a great book by John DeMartini called The Values Factor. And it's all about discovering your personal core values. So for me, it's knowing what those values are and understanding within those what brings joy, because that's when I'm the most aligned. When I am doing things that for example, I have been an entrepreneur and a freelancer for a really long time. And a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, my son was in college, and I was thinking, okay, well, I could make a bigger financial contribution if I had a full-time job. I took a job, and it was good, and it was, there was a lot of things about it that were aligned. But what I realized is one of my core values is freedom for me to choose the things that I want to do, invest where I want to invest. Like my top core value is freedom. Okay, personal freedom. And in a job, I don't have that level of personal freedom, right? You just don't. And if that's not a core value for you, then you're probably fine. But for me, I didn't know that. So all these years, I've always been that employee who like asks a lot of questions, really needs to understand why we have to do this, push back if I think things don't make sense. And I just kind of thought it was because I was difficult, or, all those negative things you put around yourself. Well, I'm just difficult. I'm bossy. I'm, whatever, insert negative connotation. But what I realized is that all those years I was operating outside of my core value of freedom. I was always that were super structured. I mean, a teacher, for God's sake, you must be there at a certain time. You sign a contract.
You follow
know what I mean?
curriculum, like all of
Yeah,
these
there's
things.
so many like unchangeable things. Like you're in this deeply structured environment, and so you have some autonomy in your own classroom, like when you shut the door, but you still have this high level of structured requirements. And it took a long time to figure out that was part of my issue. There wasn't joy because I wasn't aligned. I wasn't operating in my core values. Now, another core value is teaching and learning. I love to teach people. I love to learn. I'm constantly reading or, Googling something and whatever, so that I can be more informed. So that core value was being met, which is probably why I was able to continue doing it as long as I was. But, that freedom value, overshadows everything. Like, it is the driving value that I have. And so, yeah, that's, now that I know that, I I can make more informed decisions for myself, right? Um, there's times as an entrepreneur, you get a little squirrely and you're like, oh, maybe I just need a job. I'm just gonna go back. This is too much. I'm getting a job. And so you start looking around and you're like, ooh, nope, don't want to do that. Nope, don't want to do that. Oh, nope, don't want to do that. And maybe I would do that. So I might apply, but if the application is too complicated, no. So it's like, why am I applying for these jobs? None of them are going to give me the freedom that I have. Like, none, zero. It's not possible.
It's so funny you mentioned that because I've gone through this dilemma so many times, and I'm sure entrepreneurs out there have been down this road where it was like, you know what, maybe I'm not cut out for entrepreneurship. Let me find a job. Like, I'll find a job because it's more stable. It's all these things that you tell yourself. And then as I'm looking down the list, I realize I'm like, do I really want to be back in an office environment? Do I really want to answer to a manager? Do I really want to work 9 hours a day? Like, and then all of these things. And I realize, the values and also the list of like how you structure your values is very important because yes, abundance and money is very important for human survival and just to live,
Yes.
but then do I want to give my freedom up for that, or do I want to give my
Right.
self-expression up for that, right? And so that structuring of like, okay, what's more important to me is also very important.
I completely agree. And I think that's sometimes why we wind up getting stuck in places where we're not aligned, because we have basically traded our highest core value potentially, or we've traded a value for financial reward, right? I
Mhm.
think whenever you trade a value for financial reward, it, I don't want to say never, but I think it rarely, it's not sustainable. It may be okay in the short term, but I don't think it is sustainable at all, right? Because eventually you get to the point where you're like, this is not worth it. The ROI is not here,
Mhm.
right? I am completely misaligned with who I am. And I mean, I didn't even know what misaligned meant for the longest time. Like, it's only been the last, maybe 10 years or so that misalignment, out of alignment, aligning your energy, all these kinds of things began to make their way into my world. And I'm very grateful because, a lot of people view what we're talking about, intuition, alignment, energy, as woo woo, right? Ooh, that's just some woo woo. But there's actually a lot of scientific research around all of these things that we've been talking about that people might chalk up as woo woo. People are made to be intuitive. That's not some crazy concept. I mean,
Mhm.
neuroscience and neurophysicists and all these extremely smart people have been discovering that they're like, the energy of the universe is like a spider web. It's all connected. And so when one little place gets tapped, it sends vibrations out, right? Like a
Mhm.
spider. When you watch a spider, when a fly lands, the web moves, it may break, but it's still connected, right? The whole thing doesn't fall apart, just that one little spot. And then she goes and fixes it. So, you know, I found that fascinating. And it's completely different to my upbringing, which was, my dad was a preacher. So, it's kind of a very religious ish family, and completely not in alignment with those teachings. So it takes a while, right? To rewire your brain, to really take the steps and actions that help you make those changes that have been hardwired into those thoughts that have been hardwired into our brain for so long. That's one of the things about like unconscious bias. It's just crap that's wedged into our brain from years and years and years and years of hearing it or seeing it, right? And so when we're faced with an unknown in a situation, then our brain says, ooh, 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 I've got something for you. And it will just go find whatever thing it thinks you need and inserts it in a situation. So if you're not self-aware, if you're not in alignment, if you're not at least working towards that, then you're more likely to let your brain override you in that moment, right? So you have to actively think about, how to rewire yourself. I often give it as an analogy to Jurassic Park, right? You've got the dinosaur DNA, missing a little spot, something important, so they plug in frog DNA, and we all know what happened. I mean, granted, it made 5 movies, but still, every one of them, the entire world collapsed. So it just goes to show it's really worth it to begin to rewire your brain and have different conversations with yourself regarding a lot of things, because we have bias against our own selves. Like, this is not just about, diversity and inclusion. It's about bias about all kinds of things, right? We are biased against other women in some ways, right? We look at another woman and say, oh, well, she's doing that. And your brain says, ooh, 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 ooh. That could not even be the case at all, but you've made it, even if it's a silent judgment, you've still, right? You got to be more aware of it. And that's what I think is so critically important. It's just becoming more self-aware, becoming your own best friend, understanding yourself, and being able to say, oh, that was my old way of thinking. I'm not doing that now. Right? I'm not doing that now. Yeah. No brain. No. We've rewired that. Go back. Put that back in a file drawer somewhere. That's not the way I'm viewing this situation now.
So self-awareness and realizing like what actually aligns with you, right? Because oftentimes where we are stuck in our patterns and our brain has these neural passageways that makes you feel safe, makes you feel comfortable. And we're used to just like, okay, today I wake up and I go to work and I do all these things and I do my chores and that's it. That's the end of it. But then when you realize, okay, what areas of my life am I not exactly content with or I'm not happy with, and I'm really, really dissatisfied and I want to change. And when you start looking at those little components and saying, well, today I'm choosing not to do that. I'm choosing to do something different, right? I'm not going to watch Netflix. I'm actually going to go out in the park, or I'm going to go make a new friend instead of talking to the same old friends that always have negative opinions about me. Like, I want to do something different. So I think that is important. It's important in the whole like self-discovery part of my life is not so constrained and it can be so expansive.
It does. It absolutely, it creates all this space for you to really, as you're saying, just explore. I mean, unfortunately, we do not give ourselves enough room to be explorers. It's like when you become an adult, you are suddenly cut off from all your dreams, all your opportunity to explore. Like, it's like, oh, I am now an adult. I must put myself in this XYZ box and I may never take the top off of it again. And this is where I have to live for the next 65, 70, 80 years of my life, right? And here I am at 50. And that is bullshit, y'all. Like, don't even buy that. Just don't buy it. Just don't, because, and for anyone who's under 40, there is a magic that happens at 40 for women. Like, it is truly a magic. It's like you suddenly become comfortable in your own skin. And then now that I'm hit 50 last year, in last November, I feel like I'm wise now. Like, I've learned a few things. Like, I'm not that same dumb girl I was at 20, or 25 or even 35. Like, I'm not that same girl. I'm a grown ass woman who knows exactly what I want. And it takes a while. Like, it's okay. Wherever you are on this journey, if you take nothing else away from what I said, it is okay to be where you are, doing whatever it is that you're doing, as long as that's not where you hope to stay for the rest of your life. Because there's just too much life out there. There's too many opportunities and experiences to really become who you're made to be, not just who you are in this moment, right? We are all filled with such potential. So and
much.
It's a shame that we can't see it in ourselves.
And I'm going to tap into that as like a younger woman, like in my 20s right now. It was so constraining to know, like, I have to have my life figured out by the time I get to college. No one knows what they want to do at the age of like 18. Like, no one
knows.
Why
do we make children think, like, why do we make people decide what their entire life is going to be when they are 18 years old? They've had no experience. Their brains are not even fully developed. Like, science tells us our brain is not completely and fully developed until we're 25. So, I mean, at least until you're 25, don't beat yourself up about it. I mean, I say don't do it at all, but it's hard not to.
It's
Because
hard not to because we're constantly being told this by society, and this is a new pathway of living. It's not new, but it has to be retaught because they don't teach us these things. They don't
no,
tell, like now it's like I tell you what to do and that's it. Like you're being spoon fed. But how do we go back to figuring things out for ourselves? Like maybe I don't want to live this way. Like I want to live a different way. And so
right.
you specialize in the whole joyful zone of genius. Like, what exactly is that?
So, joyful zone of genius is where you find the most effective use of your skills, your interests, your passions, your abilities, and you partner that with where can you create moolah, because we all need money. We cannot be in this society. I mean, it's not a cash free society, right? It's a cashless society because we've moved all to electronic payments, but it's not like cash is gone, right? We still
Mhm.
need income in order to live these lives that we want to live. But the zone of genius is where you partner up with what makes you unique in who you are, along with the opportunity to earn income from those, right? So in the process that I teach, which is called the Joy Money, it's in my world, it's micro because I'm all about micro learning, like short pieces of juicy content that really help move you forward without like hours and hours of stuff, right? Because I think we're all burnt out on virtual to some degree, right? Or we're getting there. But nonetheless, in this process, you really work through all the things that you do, like all the tasks that could be in your personal, professional, or if you're an entrepreneur in your business life, right? And you brainstorm it all out in different categories, and then there's this a beautiful board. It's like this big board. The whole thing comes with this big kit of stuff. So this is not like just log into something boring. It's like, here's what you do with this cool stuff, and it's going to move you into creating this joyful zone of genius. So we work through all of those things, and then we start putting these things on the board. Okay, what do I do that brings me joy, but it costs me money, right? Like yoga classes, or I'm taking German lessons, right? They bring me tremendous joy, but I'm paying for those. So you go all through there, and then what are some business or professional things that you do so that you can figure out what brings you the most joy. So that's where you focus all your attention, right? Because professionally or as a small business owner or entrepreneur, you bring something to the table that no one else brings. It doesn't matter. You can have 50 people in a room who have the exact same experience, qualifications, education, etc., but no one is going to do it quite like you, right? Because you don't have the same life experiences. You don't have the same childhood experiences. You don't have the same, like I read books so that I can make myself a better person. Other people may not be doing that. So we're exactly the same on paper, but I might bring something different because I've done this, or you might bring something different because you've done that. So you're unique, and that's where your joyful zone of genius comes in. And throughout this process, you figure it's a cool board, and it's got like a line in the middle. So all the things above the line are like what brings you joy. And then over here in this quadrant, you say, oh, this brings me joy and I could make money doing that, or I am making money doing that, right? And then everything below the line, you get to decide, do I want to dump it? Do I want to delegate it? Or do I want to redesign it so that there's more joy in it, right? So back to those things that we don't like to do. How can we make them more joyful? How can we motivate ourselves more to like get that junk done so that we can spend more time over here in our joyful zone of genius? And for me, going through that process, I realized I love speaking. I love being interviewed. I love talking to people and meeting new people. It's joy for me. Like I really enjoy speaking. And recently I was doing some, journaling, and the card I pulled was, authentic voice. Use your authentic voice. And interestingly enough, I from that point, I got asked randomly to speak on like 3 or 4 different events. So I know that it's time to really step out with my authentic voice.
Yes.
And it brings me joy, and I like it, and there's an opportunity to make income there, right? I can either get paid to be a speaker, or I can speak for free and hopefully, bring people in who are interested in the programs that I do, and want to be part of my community, which will help my business grow. There's the money. But I discovered that a lot of the marketing, the social media, the you've got to skid out content all that kind of stuff, it made me crazy and I hated it. So I wasn't doing it.
Mhm.
Or I was spending so much time doing that or working on my website that I couldn't, that I had less time to be with my clients or customers or speaking or whatever, right? So that helped me create a job description for a virtual assistant. I hired a virtual assistant. She works for a virtual assistant company. So I have access to all the skill sets of the people in the company. It's really like she's my VA, but if I need else, she reaches out to her community and helps me find the support that I need or the
Mhm.
services that I need. And if I hadn't done that process, I think I would still just be totally underwater, feeling overwhelmed, not knowing where I found joy, focusing on things that not only didn't bring me joy, but also weren't generating income, right? I mean, if I'm
Mhm.
a business owner and I'm trying to get clients, sitting behind my computer for 3 or 4 hours a day working on my website or, okay, then I'm not available to you. Then I'm not out there. I'm not speaking. I'm not, teaching workshops. I'm not being visible and available. And plus, I don't like it.
It just drains your energy. So,
Yeah, it's like I don't want to learn. One of the things I will say that I've learned in the entrepreneurial world, for those of you who are either in it or interested in getting there, you don't have to know everything. And I wish somebody had said that to me. Like, beat it in my brain. You don't have to know everything. Like, here I was at the beginning, signing up for all these courses, all these things. Like, okay, I got to learn how to do this. I got to learn how to do this. And I do love to learn. And so that's another thing I have to work on. And, but, but what I discovered later, way later, is I don't really want to know that stuff. I had a meeting not too long ago with a potential freelancer, and I'm like, here's the thing. I know enough to know if you're telling me some crazy stuff, but honestly, I don't want you to teach me how to do this. I don't want to know how to do it at the end. I want you to take care of it. And
mhm.
these are my expectations.
So you can focus on your zone of genius.
Well, yeah, because when you are not working in your zone of genius, it's just like pushing a boulder up a mountain. It's not fun. It's hard. It makes you procrastinate. I think it made me create some bad habits that I had to unravel because it was so frustrating. And, and I think also I have to be careful to not just catch on to the next thing, right? You see some post about, oh, $47, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh,
We
$47. I mean, I could do that. And then only to like buy it and never do it. So my friend and I say we're course whores. We just buy all these courses and we never do anything with them.
That's me. Yeah.
It's crazy. And so, yeah, what I have finally discerned is I don't have to know everything. I can
Mhm.
know what I want to know for the pure joy of knowing it, not because I have to actually implement it. Right? I need people that can help me do some implementation. No one can write my curriculum but me. No one, I mean, I write curriculum for clients, I write my own curriculum. Uh, I'm sure I could find someone who's got that skill set. But that's what I do,
That's
right?
what you're
That's
aligned to. Yeah,
my zone of
exactly.
genius. That's what I enjoy. That's what I want to do in my business. I don't want to be making websites and sending out emails and posting stuff. That's what she does. And
Yeah.
she's the girl I send over and say, "Oh, I got this opportunity to speak on a summit, and they need all this information." And she's just like, "Got it," because we created a document, and she just goes in there and does it. And it's just that's joy in itself. Forward.
Now we're gonna wrap it up because we're coming on time. So, as we are, coming to a close, can you summarize like the top three things that people should start focusing on to be more aligned with their joy and what they want to do?
First, I would say make sure you understand the difference between joy and happiness. And the biggest difference is that joy is intrinsic, it comes from inside you, it is long lasting, it's not temporary. Happiness, on the other hand, comes from external circumstances, external situations, and it's not permanent. We all know it. Happiness is fleeting, right? Joy, not so much. Living in your joy, absolutely. And then as far as your values, one easy way that you can kind of get some clarity around your core values is just make a list of things that you always have time and money for. that
Mm.
always have time and money for them. No matter what, I will make time. I will find money to make that happen. And just make a list and then see where the commonalities are. And that may very well be something that you truly value, which is why you're always making space for it. And then the third thing I would say is that, um, as far as alignment, that's the place to start, right? Understand joy versus happiness, understand your core values, and then use your own intuition to discern if this opportunity or this decision is aligned with your joy and your values, right? Because if it's not even touching it, it's just not going to work out. I mean, it could be initially, but in the long term, it's not sustainable to consistently be working out of alignment, outside of your values and outside of your joy.
Mm. Wonderful. And I know you have something special for the audience for joining in today. Can you share your freebie with us?
Yes. So I mentioned earlier that I make micro training courses, which are like super short, juicy nuggets of info. So I believe what I'm offering for this summit is a link to a free course, How to Be a Joyful Badass. So it's a 5-day text-based course. It comes right to your phone. I don't have your cell phone number, so don't worry, I won't be calling you unless you want me to, and then you can put that somewhere, and I'll be glad to. But ultimately, you just sign up. You will get 5 days of information about how to be a joyful badass, and that will include some tips for setting your values, for growth mindset. Where are you on a growth mindset scale? And how do you let go of some of those limiting beliefs and unleash that bold confidence that is so needed for you to like take those big risks, to just jump out into the world and be whoever you are. So please take advantage of it. Totally free.
Yes, I will link all of that below. As you guys know, thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here. The conversation was so inspiring. I laughed throughout the whole thing because it is so relatable. It's so relatable how constricting we put ourselves into this little box. But once you allow yourself, you give yourself that permission to explore, expand, and pursue what makes you happy, what makes you joyful. That's where we're going to get our zone of joyful genius.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Who doesn't want to be? Who doesn't want more joy and more income and more just like feeling free to live your life the way you want?
Yes. Wow. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. And for everybody else who is watching, I cannot wait to see you guys on the next episode. So, bye, everyone. Bye,
Bye. Thanks so
Jennifer.
much.